I found a spreadsheet labeled, "What if he dies before the wedding?" It included alibi options, funeral outfit color palettes, and how long she should wait before contacting T. My name is Ryan. I'm 32, and up until a few weeks ago, I was engaged to a woman I genuinely thought I would spend the rest of my life with. Her name's Olivia, 29, driven, charming, polished in that effortless way that makes people assume she has her whole life figured out. We met during a group ski trip organized by mutual friends. She laughed when I tripped over my board on the first run and offered me a granola bar when I was still face down in the snow. I was hooked. A year later, we were living together. 2 years in, I proposed. We were 8 months away from our wedding when I found the file. It happened on a Sunday, which still makes the whole thing feel weirder, because Sundays were always our calmest days. We'd do errands, order takeout, and prep for the week ahead like a boring old couple. That morning, she was rushing out to meet her sister for brunch and handed me her laptop. "Can you back everything up onto that flash drive before my Genius Bar appointment?" "I forgot," she said, grabbing her keys. "Sure," I told her. "Any folder I should skip?" "Nope. Just take everything on the desktop and the wedding stuff and documents." "Thanks, babe." She kissed me on the cheek and left. That should have been the end of it. A normal day, a normal errand. But while dragging folders into the flash drive, something caught my eye. It wasn't the file's name right away. It was the formatting. Most of her files had normal names: seating_chart_final, registry_options_v3, moh for draft. But then, right in the documents folder, halfway down, "What if he dies before the wedding.xlsx?" I paused. At first, I honestly thought it was a joke. Olivia had a dark sense of humor. She loved morbid true crime podcasts and weird Reddit threads. My first thought was that it was a writing prompt or a prank. But when I opened it, nothing about it was funny. It was a spreadsheet. Multiple tabs. Tab 1, Statement Drafts. Each cell contained versions of messages. Social media captions. Things like, "He was the love of my life. I don't know how I'll go on. Please respect my privacy as I grieve." This wasn't supposed to be our story. There were even character counts next to each, as if she'd already planned how they'd display on Instagram or Twitter. I told myself to stop reading, but I clicked over to the second tab. Tab 2, Alibi Options. At sister's yoga retreat, phone off. Wellness cabin, no signal. Visiting college roommate, can't be reached. Each entry had a checkbox column labeled believable, with comments in the margins. One note read, "Backup plan, car trouble en route." My pulse started climbing. My palms were sweating. I'd been sitting in the kitchen, but I moved to the living room without realizing I had, as if walking could help me think clearer. Was this a joke? I clicked again. Tab 3, Funeral Wardrobe. This one was somehow worse. There were color palettes, black and navy options, each labeled for different emotional tones. Crushed but graceful, black dress, pearl earrings. Barely holding it together, gray shawl, no makeup. Shock still fresh, sunglasses, hair up, minimal jewelry. What the hell was this? Each look had tiny notes. No red lipstick. Consider waterproof mascara. Don't wear white. People will notice. That's when my body made a decision before my mind caught up. I grabbed the flash drive, copied the file separately, and ejected it. I didn't delete anything. I didn't close the file. I left everything exactly as I'd found it. I couldn't breathe. I told myself she was just being dramatic. Maybe she had a reason for it. Maybe it was therapeutic. She'd mentioned once that her old therapist had suggested writing out her anxieties to confront them. Maybe this was just that. But that didn't explain the last tab. Tab 4, Contacts. There were only 2 names. Mom, don't tell everything. T, wait minimum 2 weeks. That's what sent a chill through my spine. T, not Tasha, or Tina, or Tyler. Just T, like I was supposed to know who that was. But I didn't. I checked her messages. Nothing recent from any T. I even scrolled through her emails. Again, nothing obvious. But in her Contacts app, buried between names, was Tomas R. No last name spelled out. No history of communication on her phone. The contact had no photo and only a secondary number listed. I didn't recognize it. Still shaking, I put the flash drive in my pocket and pushed the laptop lid closed. She came back about an hour later, smiling, carefree, tossed a box of pastries onto the counter and said, "They were out of pistachio croissants, so I got almond. You okay?" I must have looked pale. Yeah, I lied. Just got a bit of a headache. I watched her take a bite of the croissant she bought me and smile like everything was normal. Like she didn't have a detailed document about my funeral in a folder called Wedding Planning. I told myself not to panic, not to make any sudden moves. But something inside me had already shifted. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I kissed Olivia goodbye as she left for her office downtown, made her a coffee like I always did, Even asked her if she wanted to go over wedding seating charts that night. She smiled, said I was sweet, and slipped out the door with her tote bag and a thermos. As soon as I heard the front door click shut, I walked straight to the hallway closet and pulled out the fireproof lockbox where we kept important documents, passports, tax records, and life insurance. I hadn't touched that folder since we first set it up after moving in. I remembered we both agreed to get basic coverage just in case. At the time, we were both on equal footing. I was working as a UX designer for a mid-sized tech firm, and she was managing campaigns for a marketing agency. Nothing extravagant, just two people trying to build something solid. But now I noticed something I hadn't before. Her policy on me had been quietly updated 6 months ago. Originally, it was a modest joint plan. But sometime in February, she'd signed a rider on her own policy with a death benefit of $750,000 on me, with a note that said wedding planning adjustment. And the weirdest part? It was a supplemental add-on that didn't require my signature because the premium came entirely from her separate account. That's why I hadn't gotten a notification. The same account she used for extras. I looked at the transaction history. There it was, March 19th, $1,300. Deposit. Willowbrook Retreat. I didn't know what Willowbrook Retreat was. It didn't sound familiar. I typed it into Google. It was a wellness center 2 hours out of town. Their tagline was, "Disconnect to reconnect. Silent weekends for the soul." One of the alibis in the spreadsheet was digital detox, no signal. That wasn't just a concept. It was a real place. A booked, paid-for weekend. I called the number listed on their website and asked, in a calm voice, whether someone named Olivia had recently made a reservation. The woman on the line asked for a last name. I gave it. She paused for a beat too long before saying, "Yes, she's booked for the 3rd weekend of next month. May I ask who's calling?" I hung up without answering. I felt sick. She hadn't told me anything about a retreat. She told me we were doing cake tastings that weekend. I started going back through the spreadsheet again, this time with sharper eyes, reading the fine print. One cell had a strange comment that read, "Avoid blood, opt for fall or accident, not direct force." I don't know what it meant, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. I copied the spreadsheet, saved it in 3 places, a flash drive I wore on my keychain, a cloud drive under a different name, and I even printed out the tabs and stashed them in a folder I kept hidden in the trunk of my car beneath the emergency jack. Over the next week, I played dumb. Every time Olivia asked how work was going, I said fine. When she asked if I wanted to try a new restaurant her coworker recommended, I agreed. I smiled when she showed me a new tie she thought I should wear at the reception. All the while, I monitored her every move. She wasn't slipping yet, but little things became noticeable. She started nudging me more often to go do things alone. Told me I should take that solo hiking trip I used to love doing. Joked that I needed to be off the grid more. When I said I had deadlines, she offered to book it for me as a surprise. I declined and pretended not to notice her tightening grip on her phone or the fact that she'd started wearing a perfume she'd once told me she hated because it reminded her of someone. Someone like Tomas. I still didn't know who T was, not for sure. But I had a name now, Tomas or Dot, and that was something to work with. Late one night, while she was asleep next to me, I took her phone from the nightstand and opened her banking app using the face recognition feature while the light was off. She had a separate account I couldn't see, but this time I had access. In the transaction history, I found a recurring payment of $85 made every 2 weeks to something labeled TR Wellness Services. It didn't show up as a gym or therapist. I searched the name. Nothing came up, until I clicked deeper and traced the payment processor. It was registered to a man named Tomas Reyes, 36 years old, EMT certification, no current employer listed. His name didn't show up on her contact list under anything obvious, and there were no texts or emails from him. But she had a second messaging app, one I'd never seen her use in front of me, a privacy chat service. When I tapped it open, it required a password. I didn't have it. I took a screenshot of the payment and sent it to myself. I decided to visit the address tied to his account. It was a second-floor unit in a plain brownstone near the outer part of the city. The building had 6 doors, no doorman, and a rusted-out mailbox. I parked across the street and waited in my car, watching people come and go. After 2 hours, I saw Olivia. She wasn't alone. She walked up to the building beside a tall man with a beard and a duffel bag. He looked older, weathered, but had that kind of tight, close-cropped haircut that usually meant ex-military or something adjacent. She reached for his hand casually, then quickly pulled it back. They didn't kiss. They didn't speak. But they didn't look like strangers. I didn't follow them up. I just watched. They disappeared into the second-floor unit. I sat there, car off, engine silent, breathing hard enough to fog the window. I didn't know what scared me more. The thought that she was cheating on me, or the possibility that they were planning something that went beyond infidelity. I left without confronting her. That night, she came home around midnight and slipped into bed like nothing had happened. I stared at the ceiling, silently counting the seconds between her breaths, wondering how long she'd been planning this and whether she thought I was actually going to die. By the end of that week, I had a corkboard set up in the garage behind a stack of winter storage bins. Every connection I could draw between Olivia and Tomas was pinned up, printouts of the spreadsheet, payment logs, screenshots from her banking app, and a grainy cell phone photo of the two of them entering his apartment. I even pinned the retreat flyer from Willowbrook that I printed from their website. Every thread pointed to the same thing. Whatever was happening, it wasn't random. It had planning. It had layers. It had a timeline. And I was in it. Still breathing, for now. The funeral planning tab haunted me the most. It wasn't just how surreal it was the precision, the quiet confidence in the notes. She had mock-ups for different mourning styles based on various types of public reaction. There were outfit options for each one. And not just hers. She'd planned what my mother might wear, what would be appropriate for my sisters, even what songs would play if the service was held outdoors versus in a church. Who even thinks like that? There was a line I couldn't shake. It was in a comment on the spreadsheet beside a charcoal dress. If local news picks it up, go with navy. Less harsh on camera. Less harsh on camera. She wasn't planning to grieve. She was planning to perform grief. And I had no idea for who. The final tab, execution timeline, was labeled plainly, but read like something out of a contingency manual. It wasn't written emotionally. It wasn't like someone panicking and typing out fantasies. It was calculated, like she was trying to solve a logistical problem. 3 to 5 days window post-event before formal statement. Best to appear overwhelmed, but functional. Avoid overexposure. Stay offline except for single tribute post. Limit contact with his coworkers. Defer questions to parents. Open casket only if condition allows, otherwise cremation. What kind of person plans that? What kind of person plans that for someone they supposedly love? I had seen enough. But I wasn't going to the police yet. Not until I had something that couldn't be waved off as a creative writing project or a misunderstood Google sheet. If I confronted her too soon, she'd erase everything. Or worse. So I did something that terrified me. I played along. I told her I booked the cabin she'd been urging me to return to, the solo hiking retreat I used to love years ago. I made it sound impulsive, like I just needed space to unplug and reflect before the wedding. She lit up, said it was a great idea, and that she was proud of me for prioritizing self-care. I asked her if she wanted to come for the first night. She said no. She had too much to get done before the honeymoon. I packed like I was going. Drove 6 hours north. Left my car in the public lot. Then I hiked 10 minutes into the woods, circled back, and called a friend who owed me a favor. Matt let me crash at his place for a few nights. He's one of those people who never asks too many questions. When I told him, I think Olivia is planning something serious, he didn't laugh. He just handed me a beer and offered me the guest room. I checked the cameras I'd set up around our place before I left. The one inside the hallway closet pinged first. Late that night, about 3 hours after she thought I'd gone up north, she opened the insurance folder I'd left in the lockbox. I'd added a fake letter from a fictional broker and a note at the bottom claiming I'd increased my coverage to $2 million. I'd even printed a fake policy, complete with barcodes and watermarks. She stared at it for 12 seconds straight. Then she took photos of every page. After that, the bedroom camera picked her up packing a small overnight bag. She left the house. I tracked her phone's location. Tomas's apartment again. This time, I took a cab to the area and waited. At 3:16 a.m., she came out and walked to her car alone. She didn't look over her shoulder. She didn't check her phone. Whatever they were planning or doing, she was calm about it. That's when I knew it was time to bring in someone who didn't know her. Someone who didn't care about how polished she looked or what story she'd try to spin. A private investigator named Carla Chong was recommended to me by a mutual friend. Former insurance fraud investigator. Deadpan delivery. Asked sharp questions. Agreed to take the case for a flat rate if I handed her everything I had. I gave her a drive with everything. The spreadsheet, the photos, the banking logs, the video footage from the house. I even handed over the physical documents and the name, Tomas R. 3 days later, she called me. I checked court records on Tomas, she said. Sealed juvenile offense. 2 sealed misdemeanors as an adult. But here's the kicker. He and Olivia knew each other back in 2013. She was listed as a reference for him during a security clearance application for a job he didn't end up getting. Something spooked the employer. That wasn't the only thing she found. 6 years ago, Olivia and Tomas both lived in Phoenix, Arizona. At the same time, she never told me she lived there. She'd always said she went from college in Seattle straight to the East Coast. Turns out she changed her name in 2016. Legally, she used to go by Olivia Kent. I found the court record. When I confronted her gently, without revealing what I knew, I asked why she always dodged questions about her college years. She smiled and said, "Not everything before you matters." She was right, because everything after me was what mattered now. There was one final note in the spreadsheet. It came from the very last cell, buried in the bottom corner of the execution timeline tab. Written so plainly, it took me 3 reads to feel its full weight. Contact T after 10 to 14 days. Not sooner. Let sympathy build. 10 to 14 days. She had mapped out the public arc of her mourning, right down to when she could start quietly reintroducing Tomas. As if grief had a calendar. As if my death would be a marketing campaign she could roll out in phases. That was the moment I stopped hesitating. It was no longer a question of if she meant it seriously. It was how far she was willing to go. And more importantly, how much evidence I needed before this could be brought to light in a way no one could twist or explain away. So I made a plan. I decided to use her exact strategy: emotional build-up, timing, presentation. But this time, she would be the one caught in the spotlight. I called her father first. Walter is an old-school guy. Retired military, strong sense of discipline, polite but intimidating when he wants to be. We had always gotten along, although Olivia once told me he didn't think I was ambitious enough to marry into their family. I could work with that. I told him I wanted to throw a small private dinner to thank him and his wife for their support during the wedding planning chaos. He agreed and offered to host at their house. Perfect. I asked if it was okay to invite a mutual friend I wanted them to meet. He said sure, as long as Olivia would be there too. She would. I asked Carla, the private investigator, to mail copies of the spreadsheet to Walter and Tomas's landlord, with a brief, anonymous letter. If anything happens to Ryan Moore before July 15th, please review the enclosed document. That way, even if something went wrong, the evidence would outlive me. Then I reached out to Tomas. I found a burner number registered to him in one of the payment logs and sent a text. She says you're the one who really understands her. Why wait? I expected anger. I expected confusion. Instead, he replied in under a minute. Where and when? I gave him the address. No details. Friday night, 6:30 p.m. I was the first to arrive at the dinner. Walter answered the door wearing a sweater and looking pleasantly confused. Olivia's not here yet, he said. She'll be along, I told him. I actually wanted to talk to you all together. We sat in the living room. His wife, Barbara, joined us with iced tea. Small talk for a few minutes. Then Olivia walked in. She was wearing a simple green blouse and heels, casual but intentional. Her face lit up when she saw us already gathered. You're early, she said, kissing my cheek. That's rare. Didn't want to miss anyone, I replied. She looked around. So what's the occasion? That's when Tomas walked through the door. No one had invited him but me. Barbara stood, startled. Walter looked immediately suspicious. Olivia went pale. Tomas, she asked, as if unsure whether to smile or panic. He didn't answer her, just stepped inside and sat down across from her father. I let the silence hang for a moment before I stood. I took the flash drive from my pocket and walked over to their TV, plugged it in, and opened a short video. It played security camera footage, Olivia flipping through the fake insurance policy I'd left out, slowly photographing each page. Barbara gasped. Walter's jaw clenched. I spoke slowly, carefully, like I'd rehearsed this 100 times. I found a spreadsheet on Olivia's computer labeled, "What if he dies before the wedding?" I turned to Tomas. You were listed under post-event contact, with specific instructions not to be messaged until the 2nd week after I was dead. Olivia snapped to life. Ryan, stop. This is out of context. I cut her off. There's no context where listing alibi options and funeral outfit suggestions in advance of your fiancé's death is normal. Tomas stood up, but he looked more shocked than guilty. You said he didn't know anything. Olivia spun toward him. You came here? Are you insane? Walter stood now, his voice like steel. Olivia, sit down. She hesitated, then sat. Barbara whispered, what's going on? I handed Walter a printed copy of the spreadsheet. This is everything. Every note she made. Every plan. Every lie. Including payments made to Tomas under fake service names. Olivia's hands started to shake. I didn't mean it that way, she muttered. Walter's voice didn't rise. It got quieter, which somehow made it worse. You planned his funeral, he said. Before the wedding. It started as a thought experiment, Olivia stammered. A joke at first. But then I couldn't stop. I spiraled. Tomas didn't know everything. We weren't going to do anything. I swear. Tomas looked like he'd just realized he'd been invited to his own trial. I didn't know she still had feelings, he said. She said she was just venting about how trapped she felt. That he was controlling. Walter cut him off. No one said anything about that, but you. Olivia tried to speak again. No one listened. I turned to her. I felt numb, but focused. You studied exactly what people would expect of you. You calculated how long to wait before letting your next life begin. So now I'm doing the same. This is the last time you'll see me, Olivia, and I wanted it to be with an audience. I walked to the door. Tomas started after me, then stopped himself. I didn't slam it. I didn't run. I just left. I had already packed up everything from our shared apartment 2 nights before. I'd already canceled the wedding venue, the honeymoon flights, and the catering. I left her the receipts and the ring. Not in anger, in confirmation that I'd finally read the fine print. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.